Another new toy from iBasso, and this time PB6 Macaw, 4 Gen 6418 tubes inside. This is it. This is the box. I'm just gonna open it for you to show you what you're gonna get from the. How much was it?
499.
499 at the current price, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is it, the Macaw itself, and inside the box, of course, it came with this 3 nice sleeve. And most importantly, it also comes with this nice looking interconnect, 3.5 mm single ended interconnect, and also 4.4 mm balance interconnect, and of course this USB cable, which is actually meant just for charging purposes, okay? Because this thing, you have to remember, is a pure amplifier. There's no DAC inside. And of course, it comes also with 12V adapter, which of course it's still attached at my house over there, but Ben will talk to you about that 12V power afterward. So let's just have a closer look here. PB6 Macaw. Once you turn it on like this, I'm not sure whether you can see the light there. The tube lights up. Okay, 4 of them inside, and of course at the front here, this is the line in 3.5, 4.4, and the same thing, this is the output. These are the only input and output option provided by this Macaw. And at the back here, we have an interesting array of switches, which are 12 volt, where you plug in to get desktop mode, right?
Yes.
And this is for charging, because this thing has battery inside. And this is the high and low dynamics, and we'll talk about it as well. And of course, this is high and low gain, and this is either you can switch to 2 mode, of course, tube mode and also class AB. Okay, this, like I say, is pretty much very simple. And let's just have a look at the weight itself, because you are talking about adding extra weight whenever you add a chain of something, equipment into your audio stuff. It is fairly okay at just 291 gram, and you might be wondering also, if you use running on battery, how long does it last running on a single charge, and also how hot does it get? I can tell you one thing, I have tried this very extensively as a portable device running on 4.4 mm balance, high gain, high dynamic, and everything max out tube mode. I was able to get at around 10 hours, 100% until zero. By the way, there's no indication of battery here, okay?
Yeah.
You'll know that it will run out of juice the moment the tube no longer have any kind of light.
Yeah.
Alright, because this thing is super analog. This is a hardcore device. Pretty much reminds me a lot to the old amplifiers last time.
Yeah.
Except that this thing has battery. So 10 hours. And another thing is that it runs really cool. Okay, I get at around, was at around 28, 29, not even reaching, probably like it gets as high as 30, assuming that you are running it like this, okay, in an open space without any kind of, let's say, obstruction. But I do admit that it will get a bit hotter once you actually put it into your pocket, if you're crazy enough to do that. Alright, so now, next interesting question. The best way to use this, like I mentioned, this is a pure amplifier, class AB and tube. And this is how I did it, okay? Just imagine this. I have been using most of the time with this PB6 Macaw with my Hibi R8 Mark II here. And how I did it is that, of course, this is how I did it. I can show you to you right now, okay? Switch it on already. This is the line in, and this is the line out of Hibi R8, okay? In this configuration, what I did is that I actually sandwich it like this. Okay, can you imagine that, how thick the both of them? And the same can be said because Ben has been using the X340. So you can imagine, okay, the kind of brick that you are carrying around, because now we are talking about almost 1 kilo of audio device, just for the sake of being audiophile, mobile audiophile.
I know people who connect this to the D17.
That's
plus.
That's even crazy. If you think we are crazy, then those. And how do I carry it around? I actually have a dedicated bag, which I normally use to carry my DX340, and now also PB6 and R8 Mark II. Okay, and I slid it into my bag and then sling it out and forget. because all I want is that to have my tube walking around with me. And of course, I use my magnetic planar, and that's how I carry it. It is still portable if you want it to be portable. But to me, the best usage case scenario for this PB6 Macaw is actually when you have a DAP like this, a solid state DAP like this Hybrid R8 Mark II, which does not have any kind of tube, but it does have a dedicated line out. So meaning to say that it bypass everything, internal amp and everything, class A amplification, and I use it like this, okay? And now I can enjoy tube experience using PB6 on this R8 Mark II. In the case of the X340, it is kind of a bit unique, but perhaps you can explain how you use it.
Yeah, the X340 has a line out, but like this is the M17. So M17, both are 4.4. So the 4.4 line out, when you connect it, it doesn't push the volume straight up to 100%. So you still need to adjust the volume. So you need to play the volume wheel to get it to the top. So I don't know whether there was like a preamp or something, but maybe it does. I don't know whether, I think that should bypass the M section here. I believe it does, but yeah. So if you use it with the DX340, then 4.4 line out, it works, but you have to play with the volume wheel to get to
Yeah,
100%.
you still have to play.
Yeah.
This one, you don't have to play with volume because this one is pure line out. It totally bypasses the internal amplification. And another case scenario, why would you want to use this is that if you use something like this. Okay, let me just show you. I have this Cayenne RU3, which I did a review earlier today. You should look into it. And one of the reasons that I like this RU3 so very much because this RU3 has a dedicated line out. Yes, this $100 or less than $100 dongle have a line out. I can just simply turn it on like this. Okay, and then select line out. I'm not sure if the camera can show it. Okay, there. PO. Now it's phone out. So I want to change it to LO. Alright. So what will happen is that whenever I click play here, no more volume adjustment. This thing will always be running on 100% from the deck. It will bypass the internal amplification of the dongle. And this is another case scenario why you want to use PB6 Macaw to enjoy your tube experience while using a tiny dongle like this. And this is a bit more, let's say, feasible as compared to using this. And you might be wondering, what kind of power we are talking about here?
Which
this Macaw?
I think it's 1.2 watts if not connected to desktop. If it's desktop mode, it's 2.3 watts.
2.2
so 2,300 milliwatts.
That's quite impressive. Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, in my case, I have been using it running on battery all the time, most of the time, because Ben has been testing it on desktop mode, which means that attached with 12V connection at the back here. I was able to drive this Sennheiser HD 600 here, okay, like this, the both of them, and I am quite impressed actually with the power, even running at 1200 milliwatt of power, because you see 1200 milliwatt of power is already very high for something which is not connected for a portable device. I am hearing the kind of sound stage which is like, pretty much comparable to many entry-level desktop DAC amp. And of course, the main reason why I would want to use it, I just want to have that tube sound. And it synergizes really well with Sennheiser HD 600. The kind of, let's say, experience which is very analog, very, let's say, fairly resolving sounding. Because I said fairly because it also depends on your DAC. Like, remember, I mentioned to you, this is pure amplifier. When it comes to absolute resolution, it actually dictates by the source itself. So, meaning to say that if you were to attach this directly to perhaps to a phone, or even let's say an ultra compact dongle, or let's say Apple dongle, and push it there, you can of course amplify the volume, but you cannot expect the kind of resolution and imaging to be amplified in such a way that suddenly this thing become high-end. The source itself have to be good. And perhaps Ben can explain the differences between sources that you have tried, starting with this DC Elite here.
So the DC Elite by itself is only about, how many? 200-300 milliwatts of power. So it's pretty useless when you're trying to get anything, any headphone or whatever. Okay, but
when you want to push for power.
Yeah, so it's not the best thing. It does work pretty well with the Macaw because you can connect it
Like this?
I don't know whether there's any double amping going on, but it probably wouldn't make a difference because it's so. It sounds pretty good. It gives it a touch of warmth to the Elite, which is as people know, it's quite an analytical toggle. It has very good separation, very good layering, all that, but it needs that touch of warmth, and this thing does provide that to it. But having said that, because the tube mode does tend to reduce a bit of treble extension, a slight bit, the DC Elite's treble extension is already not the best. It's known to not extend as well as people want to, so it does cut it back a little bit more still. So depending on what you prefer. But I found that, the Cayenne N63, a little bit underpowered. I am using the...
This is the line out, right?
No, line out is this one.
Okay.
You gotta use a single-handed.
Okay.
No.
Oh, this one.
No,
Oh,
the single-handed.
Oh, this one only have, okay, yeah.
So N63, the motherboard, the C201 motherboard has about, I think, 1,000 milliwatts of power, or less. I can't remember what it is, but it has a dedicated line out. So
It's actually around 900.
900,
Yeah.
okay. So it has a dedicated line out. Unlike the other two cards that comes with it, they don't have. So the sound signature for this is essentially pretty transparent, neutral with a slight bit of bass boost and a slight bit of upper mids has been pushed up slightly, as well as a little bit of emphasis on the treble. Paired with this, it sounds very, very nice because the warmth there pushes up the lower mids, gives it a bit more impact and slam to the bass. I think what this thing is for is if you pair it with a DAP or a dongle that you love and doesn't have enough power to show its true potential, and at the same time, maybe you find that you need a bit of warmth for anything that you're using. So yeah, I think that's excellent. Using the DX340, mine is on the M17, which sounds, people say it sounds slightly tubey, which it might be.
This is the line out, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the
this
line
is how...
So power-wise, they're both pretty similar. With or without, if you use super gain on this, it's about 2,150 milliwatts of power using super gain on the DX340, 2,300 on the PB6. So very similar. I have tested them, and what I found was that power output, the performance on the IEMs and the headphones are very similar in terms of soundstage, layering, separation, dynamics, very, very similar. And the key difference is only the tonality, because the PB6 gives you a bit more of an analog sound, a slightly warmer sound, more analog. The bass is also a bit stronger with a bit more texture. But if you own something like the DX340, you might not need the PB6 because they're both performing in very, very similar power outputs, unless you want that special tube mode and you don't like the M16.
Yeah. So, just to recap what, to echo on the sentiment which was mentioned by Ben just now. Like I say, this is a pure amplifier. So it is not exactly the kind of, let's say, device which is applicable to everyone, especially considering that you already have something like this. Okay, let's just put this out of the picture first, all right? You have Hi-B R8, you have this DX340, and you have this, and you also have something like this tiny dongle here, okay? What they have in common is that all of them are pretty much, I would consider as solid state kind of output, even for DX340, except that of course DX340 has M16, which also runs on Gen 6418. And to touch a bit on that, of course, you might have seen my review on it. It is definitely similar to Nunchaku kind of sound, okay? Because Nunchaku and M16 on DX340 uses the very same Gen 6418, two of them. The main difference is that it is more like, Nunchaku on steroid. It does have offer a bit more of, let's say, punch to the dynamics itself, but other than that, it's pretty similar. So how does it differ is that, assuming that you don't have M16, you have M15 or 17, and you use DX340, then you want to have the versatility of tube amplification, then you use this, okay? And it is definitely better sounding, superior than DX340 using M16. Let me repeat, it is superior because you have to remember 4 Gen tubes instead of 2, and even more power and that translates into performance, especially for demanding stuff. Perhaps it will not make any difference at all for hybrids, very sensitive hybrid like the Audio Monarch Mark IV or some other hybrid, which is literally like, you can drive using a phone. But it makes a lot of difference if you're driving something like a magnetic planar like this Sivga Nightingale, or even full-size headphone like this. Until today, N6 Mark III does not have any kind of tube module, right? Soon. But I can guarantee you now, since this thing have a line out, then you might want to consider this just for the sake of flavoring, okay? Different kind of taste. It is not exactly for everyone, but for people who love neutral, organic sound. Because without doubt, I think both me and Ben agree that the overall temperament of the sound for this PB6 is warm, analog, and organic.
Yeah.
Correct? So I mean, he even mentioned that there's a bit of, let's say, suppression in the upper frequency dampening, especially when used with DC Elite.
Yeah.
And from my own perspective, I actually love the combination of this R8 Mark II with this PB6 Macaw, because R8 Mark II, like what I mentioned in my review on this, offers one of the very best line out which I have heard so far, okay? Regardless of form factor. It has that kind of truly transparent, truly, let's say, uncolored kind of output, at which can be manipulated by this PB6 Macaw. So meaning to say that you get that kind of resolution, imaging, the way it flows, the transient flow and everything, amplified by this Macaw, and with a flavoring of tube temperament to the tonality and the timbre. And this is why I love these two. And at the very least, okay, of course, use something like this, dedicated line out. But of course, you can use any other dongle which offer line out. So, just to quickly recap, PB6 Macaw is perhaps not for everyone, but it is definitely for people who love. The only reason why you want to use this is because of the tube goodness that it offers.
Yeah.
And last question, last one. Many of them probably already know that we are like, so very familiar with Atris D17 from iBasso.
Yes.
So, how would you compare if I were to use this, the X340 line out using this PB6 Macaw? Can I actually match the sound and the experience of using D17 with this? No.
D17 has better or has more note weight. It sounds more analog. It sounds more real. The presentation is more realistic. So this doesn't quite match it. But I would probably say maybe it's 80% there or something.
80%.
So it's not a replacement, or you can't really replace the D17 with
Yes.
this. It's also a different price point, but that has its own character. So if you use certain IEMs, right? Let's say if you use a warm IEM on this, it's still okay. But if you use a warm IEM on the D17, it can get a bit too thick, too rich, too warm. So that is the limitation on the D17 to my ears. But maybe it might be okay for some people. But if you are using a very neutral and clean IEM, transparent IEM or headphone, then the D17 is excellent. Whereas this one is a bit more versatile in that sense. So,
Yes, a bit more versatile.
Yeah.
And I agree with him, because D17 is a very difficult device to beat, okay?
Yeah.
And not even PB6 Macaw combined with this M17 line out will be able to beat that experience, because what D17 offer, you have to remember, it is running on the most exotic, if you're running on solid state, the PWM, pulse width modulation, was it 64 or 32 DAC array inside? And of course, if you are running on the R2R, the implementation of R2R on that D17 already makes a difference.
Yeah.
And then using a superior tube component, which is cork new tubes, which is, without a doubt, I think many audiophiles will agree that a bit more superior than Gen 6418. So that result in the terms of overall experience, it is just 80% of what D17 offers. So does it answer your question?
One more thing we forgot to mention: solid state mode. How does it sound? Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, solid state mode. The reason that we actually failed to mention that at all, because I honestly do not see the reason why you want to get PB6 Macaw and decide not to run the tube. It doesn't make any sense, because the solid state mode class AB here, it is actually quite good. It is the kind of source which is transparent, neutral, uncolored, and flat.
Yeah.
Okay? It is the kind of sound which, for whatever reason it is, you feel that you don't want any kind of coloration, you just switch to solid state mode.
Yes.
And how about the high dynamic? Does it make any difference for you?
Oh, the high dynamic mode, yes.
We almost
Totally forgot. I leave it on all the time, so
on all the time.
the
Same with
bandwidth,
me.
the bandwidth.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It makes it. That's what it says. It makes things a bit more dynamic.
Yeah, but-
Definitely. Just leave it on. You know?
It's like a turbo mode.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
just like Ben, I always turn it on.
Yeah.
Never in a moment that I would think that I would turn it off, because I would always want to maximize on what I can
You
get
can
from
tell the
PB6.
difference. If you switch it off,
Yeah.
then you're like,
It has that kind of dynamism to the
lost
sound.
something.
It is like, a bit more thick. I mean,
Yeah.
a bit more engaging sound
Exactly.
rather than the low switch. So
Yeah.
that's, other than that, I think this thing is quite versatile. This is definitely the kind of device which is very specialized. So if you love tube sound and you want to carry around your tube with you, you should consider PB6.
Yep.